The Buddhist conception of immortality. Relatively speaking, no birth implies no death, and when the Mahayana philosopher declares that existence has the nature of no birth, does he mean that the world as it stands is immortal and not subject to the law of causation? How does this view vary from that of the other Indian philosophers who uphold the hypothesis of a creator and his immortality? In short, in what respect does Buddhist immortality differ from other forms of immortality? This was the question proposed by Mahayana, who puts it in the following form, quote, "The doctrine of immortality advocated by the Blessed One seems to me not different in any way from that of all the philosophers. For the latter, too, talk about the immortality of the causal agencies as much as the Blessed One himself, who affirms the immortality of space and nirvana. The philosophers explain the rise of the world from a creator and the law of causality, while the Blessed One, too, explains it as caused by ignorance, desire, and karma. Both uphold causality, the difference being in name only. This also applies to external objects which are conditioned externally. Seeing this, there is no difference between the views held by the Blessed One and those of the philosophers. The latter have atoms, primary germ, Isvara, Lord of the creation, etc., and assume the immortality of these 9 objects, whereas the Blessed One says that all things are neither born nor pass away, to which the categories of being and non-being do not apply. And then the elements are not destructible. Their self-nature is neither born nor passes away. Moving through the various paths of existence, they retain their self-identity. Though the discrimination upheld by thee is somewhat different, all is recognized by the philosophers. For this reason, thou hast shown no deviation from the doctrine of the philosophers. If there is anything in thy doctrine distinguishing it from theirs, pray tell me. As far as the conception of immortality is concerned, thine and theirs do not betray any dissimilitude. According to the Buddha, many Tathagatas do not appear in the world at one time and at one place. If the philosophers make the same assertions as the Buddha himself, we must say that there are more than one Tathagata." Close quote. This was the way Mahayana presented his doubt as to the sameness of the Buddhist position with that of their opponents. In the following, the Buddha attempts to define his doctrine against the so-called philosophers as regards the problem of immortality, or that of no birth and no passing away. Quote, "O Mahayana, my view is not the same as that of the philosophers, not only as regards immortality, but as regards birth and impermanency. Why? According to them, there is a self-substance about which they assert immortality and unchangeability. My position is not that, for it does not fall into the categories of being and non-being. It goes beyond the categories of being and non-being, of birth and disappearance. It is not existence, nor is it non-existence. How is it not non-existent? Because it is like unto a diversity of forms appearing in a dream or Maya. How is it not existent? Because the self-substance of forms is not to be asserted as existent. We see them as appearances which are not realities. We grasp them as before us, yet they are not really graspable. For this reason, all existences are to be regarded neither as existent nor as non-existent. If we know that what we see before us is no more than the manifestation of our own mind, and abide within ourselves where no dualistic discrimination takes place, we see that there is nothing astir in the world. The ignorant assert themselves in their doings, discriminate therein, but the wise do not. O Mahayana, this is due to the discrimination of unrealities, whereby the ignorant get altogether confused in their judgments. It is like the Gandharva's palace, or magically created figures. O Mahayana, it is like the child's observing the various magic-created tradespeople who appear going into the Gandharva's palace and again coming out of it. He imagines in his confused mind that all this is real, and asserts to that effect. So it is with the ignorant who are confused in the judgment of birth and no birth, and of the created and of the uncreated. There is really no appearance, no disappearance of the magical figures, of which we can assert either as born or as past, because they are unpredicable, as being or as non-being. The ignorant falsely assume birth and disappearance, but the wise do not. O Mahamate, by being untruthful, it is meant that the self-nature of things is not truthfully discerned as it is in itself. When, however, an untrue view prevails, there is an attachment to the self-substance of things, failing to see them in their solitary quietude. And as long as this quietude fails to be seen, there will be no disappearance of wrongful discrimination. Therefore, O Mahamati, a view based on formlessness of things is superior to that based on form, because form is the cause of birth. When there is formlessness, it puts a stop to the rise of discrimination, and there is a state of immortality, which is nirvana. O Mahamate, one finds nirvana where one sees the abode of reality in its truthful signification and abandons the discrimination of all that is mind and all that belongs to mind. When there is the realization of supreme wisdom, which lies in the inmost consciousness of the Tathagata, this I call the solitary and nirvana.